Hi, welcome to this lesson of our study of data science. So we are still continuing with what we're talking about, Numpy. So the reason we said we wanted Numpy is because Numpy give us the access to perform array operation, right? So we'll be able to perform some math operations on an entire array. Okay, so we went through how to create an Numpy array from our first lesson, and you can go through that lesson and try to understand up until this point. So our BMI that we calculated, actually we got BMI from this formula, and it was a numpy array. Okay, so if I call BMI, this is what I'm having here. So BMI is actually a numpy array, and what we want to do in this lesson is to try to go through how to access some particular elements, right? So suppose I want to access the second element in this BMI. Okay, when I say the second element in Python, what I'm talking about is this one, right? But we're gonna use two to actually refer to the second element. Python start indexing from 0, if you remember. So this element is the element at the 0th index. Okay, this is at the first index, the second, the third, and the fourth index, right? So if I want to access the second element, I have to do use a square bracket, sorry, like we did in list. So if I do this and I print this guy, I should be able to see the second element in this BMI, which is 20.975, whatever decimals I have. Okay, so you realize that that is how I can subset that second element. If I want to subset any other element, like say I want to access the third element, BMI, then square bracket, the third element will be in the position 2 in Python indexing, and that's what I have, right? So I can do all these things. Now the other thing we can do with numpy array is that we can actually look at comparison in an array. Okay, so suppose I want to get all the BMIs that are greater than 23, or maybe let's say 22. Okay, let me actually look at all the BMI that are greater than 21 actually, right? So that we get a lot of numbers. You can actually look at, on your side, you can look at BMI that are greater than 23 or 22, or right. So suppose I want to know, so I can just go straight away and do this. I'm going to do BMI that are greater than, sorry, 21. Now if I print this, it should give me an numpy array of true boolean. The reason is, it just, what this code here does is it just goes straight to this and look whether this is greater than 21 and this true. That is why we have a true here. The other one is false, so we only have one false here, right? You can change this code to maybe 22, and we may have only one of them because the rest of them are less than 22. This is less than 22, the same thing, right? But let's say I want to really see the quantity that are greater than 22, right? So the code I'm going to use for this guy, if I want to see, I don't want to see boolean, I want to see the actual values of the BMIs that are actually bigger than 22. What I can do is, if I want to print that, I have to print use the same BMI, right? But here I'm going to subset it with a square bracket like we know, and provide a condition, right? So you're going to provide the condition we provided up there, and that's how I subset, right? And so instead of me to know the number, I don't have to just necessarily think about the index, the position where, or the values of the BMI that are bigger than 22. I don't have to worry about their positions. All that I have to worry about is pass this condition, and then Python will just subset all those BMIs that have values that are bigger than 22, and that is this guy. The reason is sometimes you want to look at some particular set of data from your data given to you, or maybe if you are being given data set, you want to look at all the values in a particular column that are bigger than some particular number, and then perform your analysis or your work on it. Okay, so that is how come you can do all these things. Now let's try to work with another array here, because the BMI, yeah, it's the array we've been working with. We can work with another array as well. So here I have this code here that what it does is similar to the range function that we use in the list, creating of list, and also looping in Python. That is a for loop, while loop, and the rest. Here we can actually use something called the Numpy at range, okay, but here we bring an a in front of it. And here the way I remember it is that instead of me to say range or arrange, I say array range, right? So it's more of like a range purposely for array. So that's, I think on my side, that's how I used to remember it, that the a in front of it is for numpy array. Okay, this generates an array with values ranging from 0 to 9. So if I run this and print my x, I should get an array of values that ranges from 0 to 9. Now if you remember, actually we can subset, right? You can actually subset some values. Maybe let's say I'm subsetting the second value or second element in this, like we just did. I mean, it will give me 1. Now let's try to say we want to change some values in there. We want to change some particular when I say values, I want to change maybe this value 4 here to another number, right? I can do that. I can actually do x, and then I subset the position of that. The position of 4 here is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually here is 4, right? I want to subset that and say should be equal to, let's say, 10. Okay, right? And if I now if I print my x again, I should be able to see the 10 in there. So basically what we did for a list where we can change an element in a list is the same way we can do for numpy array. Now the other part is that if you remember, we said in our first lesson of numpy that numpy only understand one type of data, or a particular data type at a point. Okay, so at each point in time, what numpy is doing is working with a particular data type. What I mean by data type is that numpy is if it is working with integers like we have here, it's just working with integers. So suppose I want to change the same code here, right? And let's say I want to change x, the 10 here, to, let's say, 9.5 or maybe 9.2 or 9.4, right? This is a float data type, and the actual data type we're working with was integers, right? Now if I run this, numpy automatically runs it, right? It changes the decimal. We don't have the 9.4 anymore because it just changed it to fit the original data type that we had. If, let's say, I do this 9.6, still we have that issue happening in there, so that I don't get caught unaware by this behavior, because sometimes you want to just throw in some value or insert some particular value in your array, but make sure that your value that you are inserting is the same data type as what you have. Okay, so in our next discussion we'll talk about 2D numpy array, and then we can just start working with data. Okay, see you in our next lesson.